Hello everybody, Walter here. Welcome to episode 28 of the Let's Play series for Satisfactory 1.0. In the last episode we built a facility for all of our consumables in our hidden and secret basement. And today I would like to build something a bit more obvious, and that is a factory for all of the space elevator parts. Which also means that if everything goes to plan, this might actually be the last episode in the series, but we'll have to see. And yeah, with that goal in mind, let's jump back into the game and have a look where we left off last. And here we are, already looking somewhat at the site of our next big project. So, now, as I said, I plan on building a space elevator facility, which, by the way, will also house my central storage area, and that will happen inside, or well, somewhat in the middle of this hole here in the ground. And if I were to get closer, you can see, yeah, this is one more bottomless hole with a lot of space around. And the first step is just finding the correct spot for the center of our facility, which will be a circle with a radius of 20 foundations. So let me very quickly figure that one out and put down a few blocks so we can directly get building. And it turns out a 20 foundation radius is quite large of an area, so to get that fitting, especially with this piece of the wall sticking out there, I had to go quite a bit higher than I had expected. So instead of directly getting to building, we will have to worry about the interconnection between this layer here and the layer below. Now for that I already prepared a blueprint somewhat, which is this stump here. Now this has two parts, basically this outer part here where we have a pump and then enough space for some belts. And then this part here where we have a transit tube connecting the two layers for the Pioneer, which goes through this quite psychedelic looking effect here, which I must say I really like. Somewhat looks like you're beamed up or something like that. I am quite a fan of this, I must say. Anyway, yeah, looking at this is still a little bit plain. I'm going to add a little bit of decoration to the design, and then I'm just going to put the pillar down and connect with a walkway all the way to somewhere over there. And when I'm there, I might as well already put in the conveyors and the pipe, just like in this here. Now for the moment I am not yet connecting the last two belts, since those are the sushi belts currently feeding into my storage system over there, and if those grind to a halt, then all production also grinds to a halt, and that is something I don't want. Until I have my storage system up there running, this will have to remain unconnected. Anyway, let's make our way to the top via our little warp tunnel here, which looks absolutely crazy if you ask me. But anyway, let's continue at the top here. Now, as you can see, I started a bit with the top of the pillar, but until I know what height I have to reach, I can't really continue over here, since that will be determined more or less by the outside, since I'm a bit lazy and building it from the outside inwards is a bit easier than the other way around. So, let's get started. And I'm going to start with my donut outer half, which needs to be just in the middle of this here. And then I need one every other, basically. That way I can then put in the fill-in over here. This just needs to be moved one over. And yeah, that nicely closes off and the gaps left over in between, as you can see here. Now let's just quickly grab some power so we can actually float around and have a quick look. So these are particle accelerators, and the first 12 are going to produce nuclear pasta. Obviously I will also have to connect them below the floor, so I have left that somewhat open, since not all of them will actually produce the nuclear pasta, but most of them. So let's get started with the first 12 nuclear pasta accelerators. And here we go. Everything is now properly connected except for power, obviously. So at the bottom we have our output line, which will be for the nuclear pasta, and then at the top we have the one for the copper powder. which goes just to those particle accelerators here. And this here is actually a sushi belt with a series of smart splitters, splitting off just the pressure conversion cubes we need over here. Okay, now, before we continue on the outside, let's start with the first few modules on the inside. And the first two of these are manufacturer modules. Just need to make sure this is placed in the correct spot, and that looks actually perfect. Okay. And if I put the second one in, I am going to use the fill in for the inner one. Otherwise it gets a bit tricky to put in properly. Now let's just very quickly see. Okay, this also needs a little nudge to be in the correct spot. And now I can put in the second of these manufacturer modules. Okay, that is already starting to take shape. Now, over here we have for one power for our particle accelerators. We can also chain everything together. So that is a pattern that will repeat itself more or less throughout the entire system. And what I'm going to produce over here are the smart plastic or plastic smart plating. All at normal clocking speed. And yeah, those need reinforced iron plates and plastic which are on one sushi belt and rotors which are on the other sushi belt. So I am going to slightly modify the setup down here. I just need 3 of those, and 2 of them will be on the same belt with smart splitters again. So I'm not going to, well, split off with smart splitters the materials and then run them through the modules, but I'm directly using the modules as the smart splitter setup itself. It's a bit more expensive, but makes the entire thing a bit easier to set up. And that way I can just chain all of the modules one after the other and don't have to worry about anything getting in the way. So anyway, let's get those properly hooked up. And here we go. Now, since this sushi belt here is actually the same as this one there, I can just loop this back too, which is something I had planned from the beginning. So my general idea here is raw materials flow counterclockwise, and then the processed materials and the overflow flows clockwise, with the only exception somewhat being the particle accelerators on the outside. So, yeah, that is looking good. Now it's time for the next few modules. So I'm going to need 5 modules. And as you can see, I already put in the intermediate ones, so I don't have to bother with them. But as I was about to say, I need 5 modules, and for now let's just put 1 in so we can see what this is about. So, we just produced the smart plating, so it's time for the modular engine, which makes use of the smart plating, plus the motors, which are again on the same sushi belt I just looped back. And then finally I have rubber, which is on a third sushi belt actually, together with the concrete, which also will be used later on in the process chain. So that is going to be maybe a little bit more tricky due to the amount of belts I have to handle, but for the most part this is also going to be pretty simple. And done. On a side note, I reduced the audio levels a little bit since, well, I couldn't really hear myself thinking anymore, so that was greatly appreciated. Anyway, let's get this next module in, or to be more precise, the next 2 modules, which are going to take the modular engines and turn them into thermal propulsion rockets, together with the turbo motors, cooling systems, and fuse motor frames, all of which can be found on the same sushi belt again, so that should greatly simplify the overall setup at the bottom here. So now it's time to switch to a slightly different part of the production chain, which will require just 1 module. And this one is going to produce singularity cells, just with 2 manufacturers. So the nuclear pasta I'm going to take from the merger chain of those particle accelerators here. I only need the equivalent of 4 of these, so I don't really need to take it from the end of the merger chain. I can just split it off in the middle there. Then the dark matter crystal and the iron plates are on my second sushi belt, and the concrete is on my third sushi belt together with the rubber. So all in all, this is once more not too much of a complicated setup. So, I just noticed a mistake I made about an hour ago. This first module for the smart platings is not supposed to go with the first particle accelerator. Instead, it is actually supposed to be one earlier. So essentially, the entire inner part here is shifted one to the right, and that is a bit annoying. Since that would mean that the last module, which was supposed to go somewhere over here, would have to shift onto this side here and basically split the production chain. Which is very annoying if you ask me. So I am going to quickly shift those here all one to the left, which is not too bad actually, since many of these here are the same, so it only really affects 4 of those modules here and not the full 10 or whatever I have built already. And half an hour later, the little hiccup is finally fixed. Well, in the end, I just removed the modules that I had to adjust, since, well, otherwise there was a good chance that I mixed something up, and getting all of the miscellaneous items out of the wrong belts is a bit annoying in those modules here, so I decided to be safe better than sorry. Anyway, it's now finally time to get to the last 2 modules for the end of this production chain at least, which is going to produce the ballistic warp drive out of the thermal propulsion rockets and the singularity drive from the previous modules, plus some super OSCs from the first conveyor belt or sushi belt, and then the dark matter crystals again from the second belt. And with the warp drives being one of the final products, I decided to just merge them together with the leftover nuclear pasta onto a sushi belt down there. So now let's continue with the next production chain, which is going to require just 1 module for the automated speed wiring, both of which are just going to run at 2/3 capacity, or a total of 10 per minute. So that is also going to be one of the simpler modules to hook in, since, well, status wires and the high-speed connectors are all on my first sushi belt. And now it's time to start on the outside again, so for that I'm just going to grab one of these here. And this particle accelerator is going to produce dark matter crystals via the dark matter trap recipe, but actually a third overclocked. Now the time crystals are on the second belt, the dark matter residue will be produced further to the right. And yeah, while I'm here, I might as well already get started on the next 3 modules. Now these are a little bit of a special case, insofar that I will have to, for a start, remove the particle accelerators and clean out the area, since this will actually house something a little bit different. But before we worry about that, it's time to add one more module over here, which is going to take the wiring and turn it into adaptive control units together with the circuit boards, heavy modular frames and computers, all of which once again can be found on the first sushi belt. And now following that, it's time for a slightly different module, namely one with 2, or well, actually 4 assemblers, but the overall shape is basically the same, so that fits in perfectly fine, as you can see here. And yeah, we don't have anything to the front of this, so I'm going to just quickly make this look a bit better. So what am I going to produce over here? Well, these first 2 are going to take the adaptive control units from before and turn them into the assembly directory system. Again, add 2/3 each, so 0.5 and 0.5. So they take the 2 adaptive control units we are producing per minute and turn them into about half that in assembly directory systems. So, and the next ones are going to start on the next production chain, which is with the versatile framework. Here I'm not going with the alternate recipe, just with the standard recipe and at normal capacity. Now, Supercomputer is on sushi build number 1, and the same is true for the steel build and the modular frame, so this is once again going to be rather simple to set up. And now I'm just going to grab one more of those modules here and use all 4 assemblers to take the versatile framework and turn it together with the electromagnetic rod from the first sushi build into those magnetic field generators. And with that also connected, it's time for the last module here on the inside, which is actually the only blender module. Yep, looks good. Let's put that in there. And these blenders are both going to produce the biochemical sculptor. Now water is in the single pipe that's making its way over there. And the FICSIT Dragon is again on the second build, and the assembly directory systems we can grab from somewhere over there. And that's basically the third production line finished, the output of which is once again just merged onto the sushi line for right now the nuclear pasta and the warp drives. And now to finish the fourth one, we are going to need just 2 quantum encoders, one roughly here, another one roughly here, and then a quantum or a converter right in the middle of the two. Just like this here. Now for the settings. The converter is just going to produce excited photonic matter. Then the first quantum encoder is going to produce the neural quantum processors, but 1/3 overclocked, so 4 per minute. Now the time crystals and FICSIT Dragon are on the second build, supercomputer is on the first sushi build, excited photonic matter comes from over here. And the dark matter residue will be sent over to the particle accelerator over there. The neural quantum processors will be further processed in this encoder here, which is going to produce the AI expansion servers at normal rate, together with the magnetic field generators, the superpositions oscillators from the first build, and then excited photonic matter and dark matter residue are the same as with the other one. And some elbow grease as well as a break since I was getting tired later. This is now all properly interconnected. I also decided to forgo the additional belt for just the space elevator parts. Now this is being merged onto the sushi belt number 1. So I only need to handle 3 belts in and 3 belts out, which is nice since there will be also another 3 belts coming in again later on for the sinks. But that will come when we have the storage system more or less in place. So next up is the space for the hub. And for that, we are going to need an empty inner half segment in the correct spot, obviously. Then the inner fill-ins to the side. Like that. Ah, come on. Now I can open this here up and make my way through. And the idea is to close off the 2 sides here with just a wall, and then have a platform jutting out towards the front or the outside of the donut, where I will place the hub and some other stuff like the MAM and the Awesome Shop and so on. And yeah, I think that is going to look quite nice, especially with the great view from the hub then. And that looks even better than I thought it would, especially with this lighting on the side. It quite nicely breaks open the monotony of this donut here from the bottom. And as you can see, I already moved the hub and the workshop, shop and MAM, some storage on top. And yeah, from here, just as I imagined, we have quite an amazing view. Yeah, that is very nice indeed. So, now with all of this donut business done, it's time to worry about the inside here. And I think the first step is just extending those ribs here to the outside and then put a somewhat ribbled and ribbed disc on top, which will serve as a proper floor. And that took way too long, but I'm finally happy with what this here is looking like. I even included a little SAM-based anti-gravity device to keep the entire base floating, which is this ring here, obviously. Now, let's make our way up again and let's get started on some more bits. And with that, I mean over here, we do have our logistics area and already the beginnings of our proper floor. Now, the first thing I need to do at this moment is putting those 3 belts here, plus this belt and the pipe through this rather small gap here, all the way through here, and then I can distribute them to the factory lines. Following that, I will take the 3 belts from the factory lines, the return belts basically, which will also have to go through here, and will end for the moment somewhere over there. And then I need a 3rd set of 3 belts, going again below the floor, but this time ending somewhere over here in 3 awesome things, because 3 of the belts are sushi belts, and for them to work properly, we have to make sure they never go into a heart. So that is going to be the next big step for this entire build here. And we are done over here. I even included a way to get rid of garbage and a priority power switch to turn off the production in case we ever have to. And yeah, with that, all of the production for the space elevator parts is in place and basically ready to go, except we still need to include our storage system on the outside here, which will connect the return line from over here with the sink line over there as an intermediate. But looking at the clock, I definitely lost a bit too much time working on, well, first fixing the little mistake in the donut here, and then I also spent a bit too much time on getting the shape for the bottom just right. So unfortunately it looks like we'll have to put a pin in it for this episode here, and in the next episode then we are very likely going to finish not only with the build, but also likely with project assembly. And with that, we've reached the actual end of this episode here. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, share, and comment. It really helps with the algorithm. In the end of that, wish you a nice day, and well, see ya.